In the silent dark of Nexus Station, one human dared to pretend he was asleep and uncovered desires powerful enough to shake three worlds. This is where diplomacy breaks and destiny begins. The legend starts now. Max Draven felt every muscle in his body throb with exhaustion as the doors to the security wing finally slid shut behind him. Nexus Station, normally a place of measured order and sterile calm, had spent the last 12 hours transformed into a chaotic interstellar highway filled with delegates, envoys, translators, curious merchants, opportunists, and the kind of political parasites who only appeared when a summit promised history-making deals. Max had dealt with all of them, smiling, bowing, scanning, authorizing clearances, resetting protocols, politely redirecting egos the size of small moons, until the weight of it all clung to him like static. He stepped into his private quarters, letting the soft hiss of the door's seal finally drown out the noise of the station. His room was modest, a bed, a desk, a small viewport, and the faint hum of life support cycling through vents. Outside, the stars drifted past like silver dust on velvet. It should have been peaceful. It should have been comforting. But Max felt like he was carrying the whole damn station on his shoulders. "Computer lights off," he muttered. The illumination faded instantly, leaving only the gentle glow of starlight leaking through the window. His body sank onto the mattress with the kind of relief that bordered on spiritual. 12 hours of alert focus would drain anyone, but being the security chief for the human delegation during the Galactic Convergence Summit, that level of stress should have come with hazard pay and mandatory therapy sessions. He rolled onto his back and exhaled slowly. At least he had a few hours before the next briefing. His thoughts drifted uninvited to the Lyrian sisters he'd escorted earlier that day. Ivala and Vela, representatives from Lyria Prime, minor attaches on paper, anything but minor in presence. Max could still see them clearly, azure skin glowing under the station lights, silver white hair flowing like molten metal down their backs, and those luminescent silver eyes that seemed to examine him like he was a puzzle piece from a completely different dimension. They had been unusually attentive, whispering to each other, stealing glances, and when Max had greeted them, Ivala had held his hand longer than any diplomatic protocol manual would ever approve, long enough for him to notice her fingers were cool and smooth like silk dipped in moonlight, long enough for his pulse to betray him. He dismissed it, of course. He had to. Harrington's lecture still echoed in his mind. "Keep your pan zipped and your brain switched on. We're here to represent humanity, not embarrass it." Max was halfway to sleep when he heard it. A sound he wasn't supposed to hear. A soft electronic chime, his doors locked disengaging. His eyes snapped open internally. Externally, he kept perfectly still. Years of training made it easy to slow his breathing, relax his face, and slip into the illusion of sleep. His hand drifted barely noticeable toward the stunner mounted under his pillow. But before he could reach it, he sensed it. A presence. No two presences. Soft footsteps, light almost floating, definitely not human. And then something else. A third presence. A shadow. Max couldn't see it, but he felt it in the way the air shifted outside his room. A flicker of movement barely visible under the doorframe. A silhouette lingering for just a heartbeat, too tall, too rigid to be Lyrian. Watching. Waiting. The shadow vanished soundlessly. A chill crawled up Max's spine. Someone else knew this breach was happening. Someone else was interested in it. That alone was enough to send every instinct screaming danger. Inside his room, a whisper broke the silence. "Are you sure this is wise, sister?" Vela. Soft-spoken, melodic, but trembling with excitement or nerves, Max couldn't tell which. "We looped the security feed for 20 minutes, another voice replied. Confident, mischievous, definitely Ivala. No one will know. Max nearly twitched. Looped the feed from the inside, that was supposed to be impossible. Human engineers built those systems. Built them paranoid. If Lyrian attaches could override them, that was a problem. A serious one. But the sisters hadn't come armed, hadn't come cautious. They whispered like teenagers, sneaking into a forbidden concert, not assassins executing a mission. Ivala's breath hitched slightly. "Look at him, Vela. Have you ever seen a human with such perfect musculature? The jawline alone is a work of art." Vela giggled quietly. "And humans run warmer than we do. Imagine what their stamina must feel like." Max nearly lost control of his breathing. Fantastic. They weren't spies, they were thirsty. A weight dipped the side of his bed. A soft, cool hand traced the curve of his arm. Such heat, Ivala murmured. It radiates through him. Vela moved closer. Careful, sister. If you touch him too long, the empathic feedback may overload. Remember what happened with the ambassador on Tyrannus 5. A pause. A guilty one. Max's mind kicked into overdrive. Overload. What exactly did Lyrian empathy do to humans? Then a finger brushed the drawstring of his sleep pants. Nope, that was enough. His hand shot out, catching Avala's wrist with reflexive speed. He sat up in one smooth motion, stunner in hand but not raised. The sisters gasped, more flustered than frightened, as he reached to activate the bedside lamp. Warm golden light filled the room. Two azure faces stared at him, luminous eyes wide. Their silver hair tumbled over their shoulders in shimmering waves. They looked like ethereal spirits caught doing something deliciously forbidden. Ladies, Max said evenly, though his pulse was anything but steady. While I'm flattered, breaking into a security officer's quarters is, let me put this gently, a deeply terrible idea. Avala didn't withdraw her hand. Instead, her lips curved into a slow, unapologetic smile. Security Chief Draven, we merely wish to discuss tomorrow's arrangements in private. At 3 in the morning, Max raised an eyebrow. After hacking my lock and looping the station's feed, Vela's cheeks deepened to a darker shade of blue Lyrian embarrassment if Max guessed right. Diplomatic complications, she said softly. Being seen entering a human's quarters could jeopardize our position. Max sighed, rubbing his face, then maybe wait until daylight. But daylight is so predictable, Avila countered with a wicked gleam in her eye. Direct pursuit is a Lyrian custom. Direct pursuit, Max repeated flatly. Right. He studied them carefully now, really studied them. They weren't armed, they weren't acting, and they sure as hell weren't trying to kill him. If anything, they were dangerously sincere. We do have a proposition, Avala continued, leaning closer. We want you to escort us during tomorrow's gala, as our protector and our liaison. Her gaze drifted down his bare chest before returning to his eyes. Max swallowed. Professionalism was dying a slow, painful death. Next time, Max said, forcing his voice steady, send a message. During normal hours. And without bypassing military-grade cybersecurity. Vela nodded meekly. Evala just smirked. Max stood, pulled on a shirt, and motioned to the door. I'll walk you back, before any actual security catches you. They followed, graceful, whispering, casting glances that were equal parts admiration and mischief. But as the door slid open, Max paused. How, he asked slowly, did you loop the feed? That system isn't supposed to be breakable. The sisters exchanged a look. Vela gave a tiny shrug. We Lyrians have certain talents with electronic systems, a cultural specialty. Max's mind churned. So they'd hacked the system. Someone had watched them do it, and the summit hadn't even started yet. As he escorted them down the dim corridor, a single thought echoed through his mind. This wasn't an accident. Something bigger was already moving, and Max was right in the middle of it, whether he wanted to be or not. Max woke earlier than he expected. Maybe it was the lingering adrenaline from the midnight intrusion, or maybe it was the unmistakable sense that today's summit events were going to be anything but routine. Either way, sleep refused to return. He dressed in his uniform, dark blue, freshly pressed silver trim along the edges, and left his room with a tension humming under his skin. His mind kept replaying the night, the sisters sneaking in, the mystery shadow outside his door, the way Avala's fingers had traced his arm like she was memorizing it, the way Viola's soft voice had trembled with both caution and intrigue, and the things they'd said about empathic overload. That part stuck with him. Most species had quirks. Humans were surprisingly adaptable. The Vinari had bones that glowed when stressed. The Orshak could sense metal by taste. But Lyrians were different. They didn't just sense emotions, they shared them. That was dangerous and intimate as hell. He found himself in front of their quarters sooner than expected. He took a steadying breath, pressed the panel, and waited as the door slid open with a soft chime. A wash of cool blue light spilled over him. The Lyrian quarters were breathtaking grown. Rather than built with sweeping organic curves, soft cushions shaped like flower petals and walls that glimmered like polished crystal. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and something distinctly alien, something calming. Evola was waiting for him, and she looked even more disarming in daylight. Her gown shimmering silver hugged her form like woven starlight. Her hair was braided with luminescent crystals that caught every motion, sending ripples of light along the strands. She smiled not mischievously this time, but warmly like she'd been waiting for him. "Security Chief Draven," she greeted, punctual as always. "Professional habit," he replied, trying to ignore the way her gown flowed over her silhouette. "Come in," she said. Vela's finishing her preparations. Max stepped inside. The room felt alive, like it breathed with them. Blue-tinged light filtered through translucent walls. Strange bioluminescent plants curled in corners, glowing faintly. A curved sofa, grown from living material not manufactured, invited him to sit. Ivala gestured for him to do exactly that. "I must apologize again for our unorthodox introduction last night," she said. "Lyrian customs can sometimes clash with human protocols." Max raised an eyebrow. "Is breaking into private quarters a common custom?" She didn't even flinch. "Direct pursuit is. We believe in expressing interest openly. To postpone desire is considered wasteful." Max coughed lightly. "Right." Before he could say more, the adjoining room opened and Vela stepped out. If Ivala was bold elegance, Vela was quiet allure. Her gown was similar in shade but cut differently, delicate fabric that framed her slender figure, emphasizing grace over seduction. She carried herself like a dancer, each motion fluid, almost weightless. "Chief Draven," she said with a gentle bow, "thank you for agreeing to escort us." "Call me Max," he replied. "If we're going to survive a diplomatic gala together, we might as well skip the formality." Max, Vela repeated softly, tasting the name. "It suits you." The warmth in her voice slid under his guard. He felt something in his chest stir, an odd sensation like emotion made physical. He shifted uneasily, and both sisters noticed. Ivala stepped closer, eyes narrowing with intrigue. "You felt that?" Max blinked. "Felt what?" "Our connection," Vela said quietly. "The empathic resonance." Max instinctively stepped back. "What exactly am I feeling?" Ivala approached slowly, like she was approaching a skittish animal, but with a confidence that implied she knew exactly what effect she had on him. "Lyrians are empaths," she explained. "We sense emotions naturally. With touch we can share them." "Share?" Max asked. "Or manipulate?" Vela shook her head. "We cannot change what you feel. Only mirror it, recognize it, sometimes amplify it unintentionally." And sometimes, Ivala added softly, receive too much. She brushed a finger along his forearm. The effect was immediate. A warm pulse shot through him, not his own emotion but hers. A flash of appreciation, curiosity, attraction. It rolled through him like warm silk before fading. Max inhaled sharply. "That's a lot." Vela nodded. "For humans, yes. Our father has warned us that your species feels emotion intensely, fiercely. It makes your emotional signatures potent. Overwhelming sometimes," Ivala added with a teasing glint. Max rubbed his temples. "Does the Alliance know about this?" "It's in our biological profile," Vela said, "though the depth of our abilities is not widely documented." "Wonderful," Max muttered. "Anything else I should know before the gala?" The sisters exchanged a glance, a silent conversation he couldn't hear, but could somehow feel. Their empathic link buzzed faintly in the air like static. Vela stepped forward. "The gala will be crowded. Emotional energy everywhere. Excitement, fear, suspicion, hope. Without preparation, it could overwhelm a non-empath in close contact with us." Max frowned. Meaning, Ivala said, closing the space between them, "You will feel what we feel if we stay close." Max looked between them. "Is that why you chose me? Emotional compatibility?" Vela nodded. "Partly. Humans align closely with our emotional frequencies. And partly," Ivala added, "because of what you felt the moment you saw us." Max's face heated. I didn't." Vela smiled gently. "You don't need to deny it. Your emotions were unusually clear." Max sighed. "That's an invasion of privacy." "For us, it is like breathing," Vela said softly. "We cannot simply turn it off, but we can control what we project and what we allow you to feel." Ivala's eyes glimmered, like this. She placed her hand on his arm again. Warmth, soft, inviting, desire clouded with curiosity, a deep sense of connection, a wanting to understand him. It washed over him in a slow, intoxicating wave. It wasn't lust. It was interest. Genuine, unfiltered interest. Max stepped back, breath unsteady. "You two need to warn people before doing that." "We are warning you now," Vela said, "so you know what may happen at the gala." "Great," Max muttered. "So you're telling me I'll feel everything you feel?" Only what we choose, Vela corrected, and only with direct contact, which we will keep, Ivala added, to a respectful minimum. Then she smiled, a playful, devastating smile, unless you prefer otherwise. Max swallowed hard. Professional boundaries crumbled every time they spoke. I'll need to set rules, he said finally. For all our sakes. We respect rules, Vela said earnestly. Mostly, Ivala added. Max let out a breath. The gala begins in 2 hours. Let's go over these rules on the way. Both sisters moved closer, too close, too synchronized, and Max felt a faint flicker of shared emotion between them, like a distant spark. Avila smiled slyly. A wise idea, Vela added softly. And afterward, perhaps we can explore this cultural exchange more thoroughly. Max didn't know whether to feel excited or terrified. Maybe both. Probably both. As he offered an arm to each sister, their fingers intertwined with his, not accidentally but deliberately sending a soft pulse of shared emotion through him. Not overpowering, just a promise. And as they walked out of the room, Max felt one thing with absolute clarity. He was in trouble. Deep, beautiful, unavoidable trouble. And he didn't mind at all. The grand ballroom of Nexus Station had been transformed into something out of a diplomatic fever dream. Holographic constellations drifted like living murals across the dome ceiling, shifting through the night skies of 20 different homeworlds. Floating lanterns shaped like crystalline lotus petals hovered just above the crowd, shedding warm light. Music, soft, harmonic, engineered to be universally pleasant, swept over the delegates in gentle waves. Max took a steadying breath as he stepped through the entrance, and instantly realized he was in deep, cosmic-level trouble. Every eye turned toward them. Every species present, tall, short, furred, scaled, crystalline, gelatinous, paused whatever it was doing to watch the trio entering arm in arm. Max in his dark blue Earth Alliance uniform, sharp and intimidating. Ivala in a fitted silver gown that reflected the lights like living stardust. Vela in a softer, flowing version of the same, her every step radiating quiet grace. They looked like the centerpiece of the entire event. He felt a subtle pulse against his arm, warm, proud, unmistakably, Ivala's emotion radiating through their point of contact. She was enjoying this, thriving in it. You're enjoying the attention, Max murmured under his breath. Ivala's lips curved. Of course. Being escorted by a desirable partner is a status symbol on Lyria. Vela added, and having two sends a very clear message. Max raised an eyebrow. What kind of message exactly? That we have excellent taste, Ivala said unabashedly. Max tried to keep his face composed, but the heat rising under his collar betrayed him. The reactions around them were instantaneous and varied. Human delegates, stoic admirals, high-ranking diplomats, and a smattering of scientists who clearly didn't get out, much stared with everything from shock to thinly veiled envy. The crystalline Arcturan ambassador tilted their head, fascinated, refracting the light in a shimmering spectrum of color. A pair of Varkians whispered behind feathered hands. The Trinarii trade guilds snickered in their strange clicking language, though Max sensed no malice. But one group did not bother to hide their displeasure. The Draxians. Their ambassador Krell stood at the center of his entourage like a monolith carved from stone. In hostility, his ridged face twisted in disdain as his yellow eyes fixed on Max and the sisters. Max didn't need empathic senses to know they were pissed. Vela leaned into him slightly when she noticed. They consider our presence with you insulting. Insulting, Max asked quietly. Draxians believe they hold ancestral claim to our bloodlines, Ivala said with a hint of a snarl. They've pushed for genetic alliances for generations. They see humans as interlopers. Max's jaw tightened. That's not how alliances work. That, Ivala said, is exactly what we have been trying to tell them. Before Max could respond, another presence approached a commanding one. Admiral Harrington. The man moved like a walking rulebook uniform, immaculate posture stiff enough to crack. His expression was carved from granite as he looked between Max and the sisters. Chief Draven, he said, representatives of Lyria. Admiral Ivala replied with a smooth diplomatic smile. We are enjoying the festivities immensely. Your security chief has been most accommodating. The way she emphasized the word accommodating sent a subtle pulse of mischief through Max's arm that he had to fight to keep off his face. Harrington noticed. Of course he did. His eyes narrowed by about a millimeter. A word Draven. Max excused himself, stepping aside with the Admiral, who didn't bother lowering his voice much. You're creating a spectacle, Harrington said bluntly. Half this room is staring. With respect, sir, that wasn't my intention. Intentions aren't the issue, optics are. The Admiral's expression tightened. The Draxian ambassador lodged a complaint. Apparently your escorting the sisters is interfering with centuries of tradition. Max frowned. That sounds like their problem, not ours. We're on a diplomatic tightrope, Harrington snapped quietly. Earth needs this alliance with Lyria. We do not need a political marriage feud with a militaristic species that still thinks consent is a negotiable concept. He exhaled. Look, Draven, I don't care about your personal arrangements, but keep it discreet. Max nodded stiffly. Understood, sir. But as he turned to rejoin the sisters, discreet became an impossible dream within seconds. 3 towering Draxians had surrounded them. Max's steps quickened. They loomed over the Lyrian sisters, each nearly 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders and ridged faces that radiated primal strength. Their expressions were carved with disdain. One was hissing out words as Max approached. Insulting to parade yourselves with this human. Our alliance deserves better respect. There is no alliance, Ivala said coolly. Only your assumptions. The Draxian ambassador Krell stepped forward. Your father understands the importance of a genetic partnership. You should follow his wisdom, not your impulses. Max slid into the space between them like a blade. Pardon the interruption, he said evenly, but the representatives are needed for the ceremonial toast. Krell's eyes snapped toward him, glowing with contempt. This is not your concern, human. As their designated security liaison, their well-being is precisely my concern. A silence so tense it seemed to warp the air stretched between them. Krell was massive, strong, brutal-looking, the kind of soldier who could crush skulls between his palms, the kind who expected intimidation to work. Max didn't flinch. Authority wasn't about size, it was about presence, and Max carried his like a shield. Finally, Krell broke the standoff with a derisive snort. Enjoy your liaison while it lasts, he said. Lyrians always return to their proper place. He turned his gaze to the sisters. You would do well to remember your obligations. When the Draxians finally stalked off, Vela let out a shaky breath, fingers tightening on Max's arm. Are you all right? Max murmured. Yes, she said softly. It's just an old argument. One that grows tiresome, Avala added, though Max felt the tension beneath her steady tone. Our father believes in strengthening ancient alliances. Through arranged marriages, Max asked. Vela nodded reluctantly. Or genetic exchanges. The Draxians believe that combining our empathy with their physical strength would create a superior lineage. Max grimaced. Sounds like eugenics with extra steps. Ivala met his gaze, her eyes shimmering. And what do you believe, Max Draven? The emotion that flowed through their connection hit him before he could shape the words, a soft, warm wave of gratitude, affection, and something dangerously close to longing. I believe choice matters, Max said quietly. More than politics, more than old expectations. Vela's fingers trembled slightly on his arm. That means more than you know. Ivala stepped closer, her voice low. Humans feel differently than Draxians. Your emotions are vibrant, honest. We can sense that. Her silver eyes softened. It's refreshing. Max swallowed, caught between duty and something far more personal. The music shifted. A sensual, slow rhythm began. Avala's eyes gleamed. Max, would you join us in a traditional Lyrian dance? Vela added shyly. It is meant for those who share a bond. Max hesitated. Will this cause more problems? Oh, absolutely, Avala said cheerfully, but entirely worth it. Before Max could protest, the sisters took his hands and guided him onto the center of the dance floor. The crowd parted. The music swelled. And then he understood why the Draxians hated this dance. It wasn't just sensual. It was intimate on a level no human dance could match. The Lyrian dance was an emotional conversation. Every movement required contact hands, sliding along arms, fingers, intertwining bodies, pulling close, then spinning apart only to collide gently again. With each touch came empathic waves from the sisters, bold desire from Ivala, soft affection from Vela, and a shared exhilaration that spiraled between all 3 of them until Max's breath grew unsteady. Around them, murmurs rippled through the room, some shocked, some amused, some impressed. When the music finally ended, they stood breathless, still connected. A smattering of applause broke out. Humans mostly, a few open-minded aliens. The Draxians looked ready to kill someone. Max leaned toward the sisters. I think we made our point. Oh yes, Vela whispered, quite effectively. But as they stepped off the dance floor, Max noticed something. The Draxian delegation was gone. Completely. And Krell had left something behind in their way, a cold pit of foreboding in Max's gut. Something was coming, and whatever it was, the dance had only been the calm before the storm. Max didn't have to wait long for trouble to arrive. Not even an hour after the dance, a station attendant, pale sweating, clearly terrified of delivering bad news, hurried toward the trio with a stiff bow. "Representatives of Lyria," he said, voice wavering, "your presence is urgently requested in Conference Room Delta. Your father, the High Counselor, has arrived." Evala and Vela froze. The wave of emotion that surged through their empathic contact with Max hit him like a pressure front, fear, frustration, and something else deeper, heavier, a sense of inevitability. He wasn't scheduled to attend, Vela whispered. No, Evala said, her jaw tightening, which means something is wrong or someone summoned him. Max didn't need to ask who. Krell, the Draxian ambassador, was pulling strings, and now the patriarch of the Lyrian delegation was here in person. This was no casual family visit. This was a political escalation. "Do you want me to come?" Max asked quietly. Both sisters turned to him at once, too quickly, too synchronized, too desperate to hide. "Yes," Vela said immediately. "We need you there," Evala added. "Your presence changes things." "Not always in ways that Draxians enjoy," Max said dryly. Evala smirked. "Exactly." They moved through the curved corridors of Nexus Station, the ambient lights dimmed to a more diplomatic, dignified tone. The closer they drew to the conference room, the more Max felt the tension radiating through the sisters, not uncontrolled fear, but a readiness to confront something long overdue. Conference Room Delta was small, private, designed for closed-door negotiations, a place where secrets were whispered, not recorded. When the doors slid open, the atmosphere inside hit Max like a physical force. At the center of the room stood High Counselor Talon of Lyria Prime. He was taller than his daughters, broad-shouldered for a Lyrian, his silver-white hair cut short in a militaristic style rather than the flowing elegance of traditional Lyrian fashion. His ceremonial robe shimmered with embedded crystals that marked him as someone of immense authority. His eyes, piercing silver, more reflective than either sister's, turned toward them with a gaze sharp enough to cut. But he wasn't alone. Krell stood beside him, and Krell was smiling. Not the polite diplomatic smile, not even the smug "I want your head" smile. No, this one was worse. It was satisfied, as if everything was unfolding exactly as he wanted. "Daughters," Talon said, his tone severe, "I see the reports of your behavior were not exaggerated." Evala's posture straightened, her confidence snapping back into place like armor. "Father." Vela bowed slightly, her voice softer. "High Counselor." Krell watched Max with a predator's patience, the corners of his mouth curling subtly. "And this," Talon said, turning his gaze on Max, "is the human causing such spectacle." Evala stepped forward before Max could speak. "Father, may we present Security Chief Max Draven of the Earth Alliance, our official escort for the summit." That role Krell cut in ends at this door. Max didn't react visibly, but his jaw tightened. "Chief Draven stays," Evala said firmly. "Whatever you wish to discuss can be said in his presence." Talon's eyes narrowed. "Your behavior reflects poorly on our world and on our family." Vela spoke gently. "We understand your concerns." "Do you?" Talon snapped, his voice slicing through the room. "You performed a triad bond dance in front of half the summit, a dance reserved for bonded groups, not whatever this display was." Max felt the sisters tense beside him. Their emotions trembled across their link, anger from Evala, hurt from Vela, and a stubborn determination from both. "We are aware of its significance," Vela said quietly. "Are you?" Talon demanded. Krell stepped forward, towering triumphant. "Counselor Talon, your daughter's behavior undermines decades of diplomacy between our worlds. The Draxian-Lyrian alliance was built on presumption," Evala interrupted coldly, "not diplomacy." Krell's eyes flashed. "Your father understands the importance of our genetic union. You should follow his wisdom." Max stepped between them before Krell could finish the sentence. "That's enough." The room froze. Krell stared at Max like he was an insect that had just grown wings and declared war. "This is not your concern, human," he hissed. "You made it my concern," Max replied evenly, "the moment you tried to dictate the personal choices of two individuals I escort and care about." A pulse surged through their empathic link, warm, fierce, grateful. Both sisters. Talon's expression flickered. Surprise. Then something else. Something evaluative. "You speak boldly for someone with no standing," the High Counselor said. With respect, Counselor Max replied, if your daughters choose to include me in their lives, then maybe my standing is not for you to decide. Silence. Heavy charged electric. Talon's eyes bored into Max's, searching him, testing him, based on what the elder finally asked. A few days of acquaintance, physical attraction. Max met his gaze without wavering. Honesty, choice, mutual respect, all the foundations that matter. For a moment, just a moment, Talon's expression softened. Barely. A ghost of something like reluctant approval flickered across his face. Then he straightened again. Daughters, he said, I must speak with you alone. Chief Draven and Ambassador Krell may wait outside. Krell looked ready to protest, but Talon silenced him with a raised hand. The sisters hesitated. Their fear surged through the bond like static. Max felt Vela's fingers clutch his hand before she forced herself to let go. It's all right, Max murmured. I'll be right outside. But as he turned, Ivala grabbed him fast, unrestrained, and pulled him close. Before he could register the movement, her lips pressed to his. It wasn't a soft kiss or a shy one. It was a declaration, bold, public, unmistakable. A shockwave of emotion surged through the empathic connection. Desire, confidence, defiance, a promise. Krell choked on his own breath. Talon froze, eyes widening. Vela stood stunned, but glowing with something like pride. Ivala pulled back just enough to speak, her voice clear and caring. So there is no confusion about our intentions. Max walked out of the room in a haze, the taste of the kiss still lingering, Krell practically vibrating with rage beside him. The moment the door shut, the ambassador rounded on him. You have no idea what forces you're interfering with, human. Enlighten me, Max said calmly. The alliance between Droxia and Lyria has been cultivated for generations, Krell growled. You are a temporary amusement. When this summit ends, they will return to their obligations. Max didn't blink. Remove your hand. And if I don't, Max leaned forward, voice cold. Then you'll create a diplomatic incident so large, your entire species will spend a decade apologizing for it. Krell hesitated, just long enough. Then he shoved Max backward and stormed away, rage burning in every step. Max straightened his uniform, steadying his breath. The emotional echo of Ivala's kiss still hummed in his nerves. A part of him felt like the ground beneath him had shifted permanently. But more importantly, something in Krell's threat had not been anger. It had been intent, promise, warning, preparation. Max's instincts were screaming. He tapped his comm. Lieutenant Mann, he said, voice low, I need access to all security logs and visitor interactions concerning the Draxian delegation. Priority Alpha. Sir, that requires Admiral authorization. Then get it. Tell Harrington I believe this concerns potential sabotage. As he ended the call, the conference room door remained closed behind him. Inside, the Lyrian patriarch was deciding the future of his daughters. Outside, Max Draven was deciding his next move. And somewhere in the shadows, Krell was already planning something much worse. Max didn't wait for permission. The moment he stepped out of the conference wing, his instincts, the same instincts that had kept him alive through black site operations and 3 diplomatic crises, were screaming at him. Something about Krell's tone, his entire posture, the timing of Talon's sudden arrival, none of it was coincidence. And that shadow outside his room the night before, now it fit perfectly into the puzzle. He strode down the corridor, already tapping commands into his wrist console, as Lieutenant Mann's voice crackled over the comm. Sir Admiral Harrington cleared your request, but he wants a full report. He'll get one when I have something concrete, Max replied. What do you have? Static for a moment. Then Mann spoke, more tense than usual. Sir, this isn't just minor tampering. The Draxians accessed environmental control systems 3 times in the last 6 hours. Max stopped dead. Environmental systems. Specifically what chambers? Checking? Oh, hell. Man, Max said sharply, don't make me guess. The main conference hall filtration system and adjacent rooms. Max's pulse spiked. Get me the logs. They appeared instantly, streams of encrypted access signatures, masked commands and code overlays that should have been impossible to infiltrate. Except someone had infiltrated them, and successfully. He scrolled further. What is this? Max muttered. A small file sat buried in the logs, easy to miss unless you knew where to look. Mann had tagged it already. Sir, I isolated that from the filtration schematics. It's a compound model. Max loaded it. A chemical structure rotated in the air complex, spiraling fractal-like. What does it do? Max asked. That's the problem, Mann said. It doesn't kill. doesn't poison, it interferes. With what? Human emotion receptors, man replied grimly. Sir, it's engineered to erase emotional responses in humans. Temporarily but completely. Max felt the blood drain from his face. So that was the plan. Disable every human in the hall. Strip them of emotion, humanity's greatest strength and weakness, reducing them to docile, logical shells. Perfect for manipulation. Perfect for forcing a political shift while Earth's representatives literally could not care. And Lyrian's Max asked. Unaffected. Their neural pathways bypass the receptors the compound targets. Of course, humans incapacitated, Lyrians still functional. Draxians ready to guide Lyrian decision-making with their usual intimidation. A quiet, horrific coup. Max inhaled a slow breath. Man, he said softly, I want emergency lockdown of all filtration conduits around the hall. Quietly, don't tip anyone off yet. Yes, sir. Max moved quickly, heading for the maintenance levels. If there was a device meant to deliver this compound, it would already be in place. And he was right. Maintenance shaft 14C. He found it instantly, a canister tucked into the branching junction of the ventilation system. Small, elegant, Draxian glyphs along the sides. Deadly in its precision. Got it, Max whispered. He pulled out his tools. Began the neutralization protocol, slow, careful, methodical. But this device was smarter than he'd hoped. A pressure-sensitive trigger, a timed dispersal mechanism, a backup failsafe, all wrapped in a shell that could rupture with the wrong movement. Man, Max said quietly, I'm going to need every ounce of luck you've got on the system monitors. Understood, sir. He worked carefully, releasing the tension on the device, isolating the dispersal system, cooling the chamber with a portable stabilizer. Sweat trickled down his spine. The slightest misalignment would trigger a premature release. One more minute, he whispered. Then man's voice hit his ear like a gunshot. Sir, movement. 2 Draxian security personnel heading straight for your location, ETA 2 minutes. Max cursed under his breath and worked faster. 30 seconds. He clipped the final latch, pulled the dispersal node free, and sealed it inside a containment case. The device was neutralized. Just in time, because the heavy metallic thuds of Draxian boots were echoing through the shaft. Sir, they're right on top of you, man shouted. Max grabbed the containment case, slung his tools back into his pack, and crawled deeper into the maintenance tunnel. The Draxians entered the space he'd just vacated seconds later. They found the empty vent, found the missing device, and their voices turned sharp and furious. They were coming after him. Man, Max growled as he dragged himself through the shaft. I want a security team at access point 17B now. Already rerouting personnel, sir, get moving. Max didn't need the encouragement. He crawled, twisted, slid through turns, ignoring the pain, scraping along his elbows and knees. Behind him, heavy bodies crashed through the ductwork with surprising speed. He reached access point 17B and kicked out the panel. 2 Earth security officers waited, guns drawn. Sir, take this, Max commanded, thrusting the containment case at them. Deliver it to Admiral Harrington. Right now. The officers nodded and sprinted away. Max turned toward the upper decks and felt a sudden pulse of emotion slam into his chest. Fear. Urgency. Vela. Her voice whispered through the link, soft but trembling. Max. Krell knows. Something has changed. He's trying to remove us from the station. Max froze. Vela, he whispered. Where are you? In the Draxian diplomatic suite. Their guards are trying to escort us and Father to their ship. He's refusing, but then Avala's emotions surged in too hot, sharp, furious. They want to take us. Max, please hurry. Max didn't hesitate. Man, he snapped. Alert all security. Draxian forces are attempting unauthorized transport of the Lyrian representatives. Lock down their sector. Sir Admiral Harrington is already on his way. Max sprinted toward the diplomatic wing, every step fueled by pure adrenaline and something else. The empathic link. The emotional distress of the sisters was pouring through him like ice and fire combined. Their fear, their defiance, their trust in him. He turned into the corridor leading to the Draxian suite, and chaos erupted. 3 Draxian guards stood at the door, blocking station security from entering. Harrington was at the front, issuing a warning that the Draxians were ignoring. They've barricaded themselves inside, Harrington growled when Max reached him. They're claiming diplomatic immunity until their ship arrives for extraction. With hostages, Max said grimly. Exactly. Max's calm crackled. Vela again. Soft, frantic. There is a secondary entrance, a hidden one. Behind the meditation alcove, Max were sending you the image. And then, a pulse. An image slammed into Max's mind crystal clear, like a memory that wasn't his. A hidden panel, a narrow passage, a back entrance designed for emergency evacuations. Sir Max said to Harrington, "There's another way in. The sisters are guiding me." The Admiral stared at him. "Then go," Harrington said, stepping aside. "Just remember we need them alive." And Krell conscious enough to face charges. Max nodded once. Then he slipped away down the corridor, heart-pounding, lungs burning, following the map Vela had burned into his mind. As he approached the hidden entrance, another emotion surged through the link. This time from Ivala. Not fear, determination. Fierce, blazing determination wrapped in something deeper, more dangerous, almost painfully intimate. A promise. "We are with you, Max, all three of us. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Max closed his hand into a fist. Then he pushed into the hidden passage, and the rescue began. The hidden passage was narrow, clearly not meant for anyone over 6 feet tall or wearing tactical gear, but Max forced himself through it anyway, twisting sideways, shoulders scraping against the crystalline walls. The Lyrian architecture here was organic, almost living the passage, bending like the inside of a shell. Every few feet, he caught flickering echoes from the empathic link snapshots of the sisters' emotions unfolding on the other side. Fear, determination, protectiveness, a silent plea. He moved faster. At the far end of the passage, Max found a small utility door. He pressed his ear against it. Voices, talons steady and composed, though Max recognized the strain beneath. Krell's sharp, venomous pacing. Multiple Draxian guards. Max took a slow breath, centered his weight, and readied his stunner. It wasn't a lethal weapon, but at full charge it would drop a Draxian long enough for a follow-up strike. He pushed the panel lightly, just enough to find the hinge. Then, he kicked it open. The door slammed outward with a metallic boom. The Draxian guards spun around, but Max was already through the threshold, weapon raised. "Security?" His voice roared through the chamber. "Everyone freeze." The room erupted. 4 Draxian guards reached for their shock batons. Krell's face twisted into murderous rage. Talon rose from his seat with unexpected speed, positioning himself defensively in front of his daughters. Ivala stepped forward, as if to intercept Max's path, entirely more instinctively protective of him than of herself. Vela reached toward him, relief flooding through the empathic link, like a surge of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Max moved into the center of the room, weapon steady. "Ambassador Krell," he declared, "you're being detained under suspicion of sabotage, attempted political coercion, and unlawful detention of diplomatic personnel." Krell hissed, voice low and feral. "You have no authority here, human." The door behind Max burst open. Admiral Harrington strode in with a squad of armed station security weapons leveled. "I do," the Admiral said coldly. Krell froze mid-step. Max didn't lower his weapon. Neither did the Admiral. The tension was thick enough to slice with a blade. "You think this proves anything?" Krell spat. "You're chasing shadows. You have no proof I ordered anything." Talon stepped forward, his demeanor calm but grim. "Oh, but we do." The High Counselor reached into his ceremonial robes and pulled out a small, crystalline recording device. He tapped its surface lightly. A holographic projection burst into the air, Krell's voice unmistakable echoing through the chamber. "Humans are inconvenient obstacles. Remove their emotions and they become compliant. The Lyrians will have no choice but to follow our lead once their allies are incapacitated. Begin the release during the signing ceremony." The recording ended. Silence. Heavy, absolute. Krell went rigid, eyes widening with a rare mix of shock and fury. Max took a step forward. "Pretty clear to me," he said. "You underestimated how quickly humans adapt." Another common mistake. The Draxian guards tensed as if ready to attack, but Talon raised a hand, and a sudden surge of empathic pressure rippled outward. Not from Talon, from his daughters. Ivala's eyes glowed like molten silver as she focused her empathy in a razor-sharp burst. Vela mirrored her, their emotional projection aligned. The guards faltered, staggered, unable to concentrate. Krell looked around wildly. "Stop that!" or what Ivala asked, stepping forward. "We cannot turn off who we are." Vela's voice followed, quiet but piercing, "just as you cannot turn off your instinct to dominate." Max seized the moment. He lunged toward Krell, tackled him with a decisive force that knocked the ambassador flat on his back. The Draxian roared and swung an arm, but Max ducked, braced himself, and slammed his stunner into Krell's sternum. A blinding arc of energy discharged. Krell convulsed and hit the floor unconscious. The guards froze. Some reached for weapons, but Harrington's squad had already raised their rifles. "Stand down," the Admiral ordered, "or you'll earn diplomatic imprisonment for obstruction." One by one, reluctantly, the Draxians dropped their weapons. Max stood over Krell, chest heaving. Vela rushed to him first, placing a trembling hand on his arm. The empathic pulse that poured through him nearly brought him to his knees. Relief, overwhelming relief and gratitude, and something more tender. "You came," she whispered. Max nodded, breath still uneven. "Of course." Ivala joined them, her hand gripping his other arm with fierce possessiveness. "I knew you would." Through the combined contact, their shared emotional resonance, intensified, warm, electric, intimate in a way that defied species protocol or logic. Talon approached his expression, a complex weave of stern pride and reluctant acceptance. "Chief Draven, the High Counselor, said your intervention prevented an international tragedy and protected my daughters. You have my respect." Max straightened. "Thank you, Counselor." Talon studied him with new eyes, and perhaps something more. The sisters glanced at each other, emotions swirling in the link. Hope, anticipation, vulnerability. Max felt all of it. He didn't pull away. Harrington cleared his throat. "With evidence in hand, the Draxian delegation is officially detained pending tribunal review, and the Earth Lyria signing will proceed as planned." The Admiral gave Max a rare nod, one of actual approval. "Well done, Chief." Max stepped aside to allow security to take Krell into custody. The ambassador was dragged away, still unconscious, his power broken, his plans exposed. When the door closed behind the last Draxian guard, silence settled over the room again. This time soft, warm, almost reverent. Vela squeezed Max's hand, her voice trembling. "You saved us. Again." Ivala leaned closer, her lips almost brushing his ear. "And you looked incredible doing it." Max felt heat rise to his face. "Just doing my job." "No," Vela whispered. "You did far more than that." Talon gave his daughters a long look, one filled with meaning, expectation, and a hint of cautious approval. "Come," he said. "We have much to discuss. The future of our world may look very different now." He gestured for the sisters to follow. But both remained beside Max. Neither moved. Talon's eyes softened, another flicker of respect forming where disapproval once lived. A moment, then the High Counselor murmured, "You've earned it." He stepped out, leaving the trio behind. Max exhaled slowly, tension slowly unwinding from his shoulders. Vela touched his cheek gently. "Max, thank you." Ivala mirrored her gesture on the other side, voice low and warm. "For everything." For a moment, brief but powerful, the connection between them hummed like a living thread tying three hearts together. Unbreakable, undeniable, and only growing stronger. Their bond had just survived its first trial, but the future was still waiting, and the next chapter would reshape all three of their lives. The Nexus Station returned to its pristine order over the next 3 days as if the chaos, sabotage, and near catastrophe had never occurred. Delegates resumed handshakes and quiet debates. Ambassadors rehearsed speeches and ceremonial phrases. Administrators pretended their systems had not nearly been hijacked by a militaristic powerhouse with a superiority complex. But Max Draven knew better. He felt it every time he replayed the incident in his head. Every time he saw the containment case holding the disarmed Draxian compound. Every time he met the gaze of a human ambassador who knew they'd narrowly avoided becoming emotionless puppets. And every time he crossed paths with the Lyrian sisters, because their presence was impossible to ignore. The empathic link had grown stronger since the rescue, more stable, more vibrant, as if their shared crisis had fused their emotional frequencies into something deeper. Max felt them when they entered a room, when they laughed, when they thought about him, even when they tried not to, which apparently wasn't often. This morning, Max stood in the observation deck, his favorite place to breathe when station life became overwhelming. The stars stretched before him in endless rivers of light. Shuttles glided from docking bays like sparks cast from a cosmic fire. He should have felt triumphant. He'd saved the summit, exposed an interstellar conspiracy, earned the respect of 2 alien worlds. Instead, he felt empty. Because today the summit ended, delegations would return to their home systems. The Lyrian sisters, including the ones who had kissed him, linked with him, trusted him, would return to Lyria Prime. And he would stay behind. Alone. He stood with hands clasped behind his back, trying to embrace stoicism, but the ache in his chest made it impossible. Footsteps echoed behind him, light soft, unmistakably synchronized. He didn't turn. "You're projecting melancholy," Ivola announced, her tone amused but warm. Max exhaled. "I thought I'd gotten better at hiding that." "From other species," she said. "Perhaps. From us, impossible." He finally turned. Ivala and Vela approached, dressed not in shimmering gowns but in travel clothes, practical sleek lines hugging their forms, the colors blending into soft gradients of silver and light blue. Even without ceremony, they looked ethereal, alien, beautiful, and about to leave. Vela stepped closer, eyes soft. "Is that truly all you're contemplating?" she asked. Max opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the doors slid open again. Two figures entered, Admiral Harrington and Counselor Talon, talking quietly but purposefully. When they reached the trio, both turned serious eyes onto Max. Chief Draven Harrington began. "Counselor Talon has made a proposal regarding Earth-Lyria relations. An interesting one." Talon clasped his hands behind his back. "The recent events have revealed a need for deeper collaboration between our worlds." Harrington nodded, "specifically a joint security liaison post." Max blinked. "A liaison post?" "A permanent one," Talon clarified. "Stationed between Earth and Lyria Prime, traveling frequently between both governments, ensuring threats like the Draxian conspiracy never take root again." Max felt something stir in his chest. "And you're telling me because Harrington said Counselor Talon recommended you for the role." Max froze. Of all the outcomes he'd prepared for reprimand reassignment paperwork, this wasn't one he expected. "Me," he repeated. Talon nodded. "Your unique compatibility with Lyrian empathic harmonics makes you ideally suited, and you have proven your loyalty, intelligence, and capability in circumstances far beyond standard protocol." Ivala's eyes gleamed. Vela's pulse of joy hit Max through the empathic link like a warm sunrise. Max swallowed. "Sir, Counselor." Harrington raised a hand. "You don't have to say yes, but Earth would benefit, and Lyria would too." Max looked from Harrington to Talon, then to the sisters. Their expressions were unreadable to anyone else, but to Max, connected through shared emotion, they were crystal clear. Hope, fear, longing. The quiet, tentative question neither dared to speak aloud. "Will you come with us?" Max straightened. "I would be honored to accept." Vela exhaled a breath that trembled with relief. Ivala's lips curved into a slow, radiant smile. "Excellent," Talon said. "Arrangements will begin immediately." Harrington clapped Max's shoulder once, hard enough to leave a bruise. "Congratulations, Draven. Try not to start an interstellar scandal before you even arrive." With that, the two leaders stepped away, resuming their discussion as they exited the observation deck, leaving Max with the sisters. He turned to them, his voice soft. "Did you know about this?" "No," Ivala said. "We suggested it." Vela added gently, "But Father made the final decision, a surprising one. He is traditionally conservative about interspecies relations." Max raised an eyebrow. "What changes, Mom?" Ivala said simply. Vela nodded. "Your willingness to risk yourself for us. The way you confronted Krell. Your emotional honesty." Max blinked. "Honesty, I was improvising half the time." "We felt your heart," Vela said softly. "Even when you tried to hide it." Ivala stepped closer, her presence warm against his side. "And perhaps," she added, "it helped that we told Father we would pursue you regardless of his position." Max coughed. "That sounds bold." Ivala smirked. "Lyrian custom." Vela smiled softly. "Human courage, Lyrian directness. It seems to work well." Max didn't disagree. "Now," Ivala said, stepping even closer, "there is a question that remains unanswered." Max looked between them. "What question?" Vela's voice dropped to a whisper. "What happens next?" The observation deck seemed to shrink around them, stars glowing like quiet witnesses. The air hummed with the empathic resonance of their shared bond, stronger than ever. Max reached out, taking each sister's hand. Their emotions crashed through him. Warmth, desire, relief, fear of losing him, excitement for what could be, and something deeper, something tender, something that felt suspiciously like love, even if Lyrians didn't name it the same way. "What happens next," Max said, "is whatever we decide together." Ivala's smile turned soft for once, lacking any mischief. A wise answer. Vela rested her forehead against his shoulder for a heartbeat. "Then perhaps we begin slowly." "Or not so slowly," Ivala whispered, fingers tracing circles on his palm. that sent shivers through his entire body. Max breathed out, voice low. I'm never going to live down pretending to be asleep, am I? Never, both sisters said in unison, their silver eyes sparkling with shared laughter. The moment stretched, warm, quiet, meaningful. But it didn't last. Not completely. A soft beep sounded from Max's wrist console, a priority notification. He frowned and opened the message. It was from Lieutenant Mann. Sir, final analysis of the destroyed Draxian vessel is complete. You need to see this. Max's stomach tightened. What is it? Vela asked. Max replayed the encrypted file. A hologram projected in front of them, data streams, biological indices, genetic markers. Specifically Lyrian DNA. Not Ivala, not Vela, not Talon. Different individuals, several of them. Ivala inhaled sharply. These markers. They're Lyrian, Vela whispered, voice cracking. But not from our delegation. Not from any registered diplomatic group. Max nodded grimly, meaning the Draxians weren't just planning sabotage. Ivala's voice hardened. They were experimenting. Or abducting, Max added, before this summit, maybe for years. The sisters looked at each other, fear and fury rippling between them so intensely Max felt the surge through their bond. They've taken our people, Vela murmured. And they won't stop, Ivala finished. Max closed the hologram. Then we find them, he said. All of them. Ivala's eyes gleamed with fierce resolve. Vela's was soft but unwavering determination. Max extended both hands. They took them. Together. The stars outside the viewport shimmered vast, endless, full of danger and possibility. So Max said, a smile forming despite the heaviness of the revelation. When do we leave for Lyria Prime? Soon, Ivala said, stepping close until their shoulders brushed. But not before, Vela added, voice warm. We properly celebrate our new arrangement. In private, Ivala finished with a wicked glint. They led him away from the viewport steps, synchronized hearts aligned. Max glanced back once at the stars. The galaxy had become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more beautiful. He wouldn't change a single moment. Not the danger, not the chaos, not the kiss in front of a furious ambassador, not even pretending to be asleep when two beautiful alien women broke into his room at 3 a.m. Sometimes the universe didn't give you the story you expected. It gave you the one you needed. And this one, with a human, 2 Lyrian sisters, a shattered political alliance, and a growing bond that defied species, was just beginning.